Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Track. If you haven't yet, go to Supercross Live's YouTube page, search Beyond the Track. You can catch all the episodes that we've done. We've done a whole bunch of them. And the best part is they are not current as far as needing to be watched currently or listened to currently. We cover a lot of big topics, so it's not like you're going to miss out on a good conversation if you go back and check out Trey Kennard, Weston Pike, Will Hahn, or the other 20 or 30 or so that we've done now. So search Beyond the Track on Supercross Live's YouTube page to catch more of these. Today's is going to be cool. It's with my buddy, Gregg Albertson. Greg, what's up?
Buddy. It's just going to be like another telephone call. Maybe talking about Evan's progress.
Oh, boy. I don't know. Well, yeah, we might have to get into that because we're going to start there with you. A lot to talk about, Greg, and you're right. This is going to be like a continuation of our normal phone calls. Otherwise, we're on video, so it'll be a little different. You look good. I like the mustache. You're looking good.
Thanks. Try to keep it carved up. I look a little pervy without the facial hair on the side, so I got to. It's a technique, but we're getting it dialed.
I think you're doing great with it. Good to see you, man, and good to talk to you. So we're going to cover a lot of different things, your past, your present, your future, but I kind of want to start with the present with you. I know the Amateur Nationals just rolled through Texas a few weeks back, so you got a bunch of riders that were there, which is kind of like a hometown race for you guys because it's, you're a few hours away up in Oklahoma, but dude, you're crushing it with your coaching and training. I know you're working with kids ranging from beginners to pros. I see a certain bike behind you that I think might belong to a pretty fast Supercross rider. And but let's just start with what you're doing now, man. Take us through what's life like for Gregg Albertson right now.
Right now, like you mentioned it, like we got everybody from 50 cc's all the way up to Grant Harlan racing Supercross. So it's crazy in that aspect. So as with the coronavirus, it had just spiked this whole thing of kids just not having school anymore. So I mean, we got a boom, and I wasn't originally out to do that, but I mean, the mini bike training has become almost a necessity to keep up at these amateur nationals, as you well know. So, adding that and the growth last year has allowed us to, hire a couple extra coaches and hands around here to help, so we can do it all. I want to be able to show the kids that they can start out, here, and they can go throughout here. Like we do have a Supercross program, you know what I mean? So we've got, kids from the 4 to 6, winning championships at Loretta's and those classes last year to, a high for me, besides working for Kennard early on, having Grant Harlan, top 5 at East Coast race, which was great for him and us, it was awesome.
How fun is that to have so much diversity in the people that you work with? You get a 4 to 6 kid who is a shredder, by the way. So, I mean, that's got to be fun seeing that success. But then you have Harlan on the pro side. You have a lot of experience there with your brother, Jimmy Albertson, of course, Trey Kennard that you worked with closely. So you've got to be pretty diverse as far as, the what you're putting out to these riders. But how cool is it and how fun is it to on one day be working with a 4 to 6 kid and the next day you're working with a guy who's getting a top 5 at a Supercross? I mean, that's pretty rangy. Yeah,
it's very cool, and obviously, with the guys running up front at the Baker's factory and what it costs to run that training facility, my guys like Grant Harlan and Brock Lassiter and Isaiah Clark understand, like, that's why they're not paying a $40,000 to $80,000 bill. You know what I mean? It allows them. So back to my background with my brother, being a privateer, whether it was my brother or John Short, I've helped out in the past. I somehow always find myself with that top tier privateer, the guy that's next in line. So I'm trying to get those guys, to that next level to where they can actually make, good money riding a dirt bike. So that's really fun for me. And it's really cool for my guys because I've got a really good group of big bike riders that enjoy watching these kids. It becomes a family here. We don't do crazy amounts of riders. We're anywhere from the 10 to 20, 25 range on a high end. So everybody's pretty close around here. So it's cool. Like, to see Grant Harlan come to Loretta's last year, he went there to support the kids that, on the 50s and 60s and 85s because those are, his friends. So, everybody cares about each other. It's cool to have Supercross parties where, there's 15 of us and we're all watching the races to see, how our guys are doing. It's really cool.
Now, where are you now? Because I know you were at Trey Kennard's old place for a long time. You made the move away from there, got a different place now. I think you moved a little bit south. Did you go south from where you were before?
Yeah.
Just tell me about where you're at right now, your program, the name of it, and kind of just, I guess, an overall macro level view of what you're doing right now so people understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, so the business, my coaching business is Game Moto, G-A-M-E, and I just really like that name, Game. And I'm trying to, when you're trying to make a business, you're thinking about, okay, what can I call it? Is it this MX or what? Now, what are the letters starting to say? And man, a GA was Gregg Albertson Motocross, and then GAME, Gregg Albertson Motocross Expertise Education. I didn't know what way I wanted to go with it, but I wanted to go in a way that was gamer. Like growing up, it's not what it is today. It's not playing video games. You were a gamer. You rose to the occasion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you and your buddies are horsing around, it doesn't matter what happened last week or whatever. I'm a gamer. I'm coming today. So that we use that term a lot. I really like that. So I wanted to be able to call all the riders I had gamers. So that so the business is Game Moto. We're out here in Oklahoma City. We're actually 40 miles south of Oklahoma City, just south of Norman, Oklahoma, 10 minutes where, OU University is. So it's a good location. And I was at Trey's old place. He sold that right before he was done racing. So I made the move out there, but I was just leasing the tracks. The kids and the families, they need, with the older kids, it was fine. They rent apartments, they drive to the track, we go do our work, we drive out. I had a client that was here, that we moved the place here because we needed to be able to let families live out there. I wanted the kids to be able to enjoy the life of being able to ride some pit bikes afterwards and just have fun, because these families got to be happy, So, and it's created this family like sort. So, yeah, that's why I made the move down to, we're in Purcell, Oklahoma now. Like I said, Oklahoma City area. So it's centered. It's no more than a 3-hour flight from anywhere in the United States, which, I mean, you could probably appreciate at this point in your life.
Yeah, I do. Let's talk about your facility. One thing I know about you is you are creative in your coaching and training. I watch the Instagram videos. I know the drills that you do, the things that you do with the track. Kind of take me through, I guess, your methodology in the way you like to approach coaching and training and the way you like to challenge your riders. And again, 4 to 6 year olds, pros, having to be able to satisfy both at a place, but I think you do a really good job at it. What's your methodology as far as the way you prepare your tracks and the way you coach your riders?
Yeah, so the coaching is why I got into this, but then unfortunately you have to have this facility, right? You have to create a condition. So with the kids and adults alike, it just depends on the skill level and where we're at. But I mean, the best you can do at a facility, and we've had this conversation. I am part of the problem now. With
yeah, you are.
But it's cost to keeping up. But my methodology is deep practice. Okay, so a lot of the stuff I do here, even though I have this facility, people want to come in and they want a national like experience. But the fact of the matter is, they don't know how to properly ride a dirt bike. So I spend a lot of time in ovals. I have an oval park of 3 side-by-side ovals. You got 2 turns, you got 2 straightaways, okay? The kids, we can dial in. I have complete control. I can see everything they're doing. We can fix things. So deep practice is a term. We practice deep practice. We set in habits. I try not to work on more than 1 or 2 things a day, because you can't fix more than that, So, and it's repetition, and it's perfect practice as much as we can get. And the oval's been perfect for that for us. Just as far as the old, and that's for the younger guys, but we always warm up on that just to go ahead and set the tone. I do some drills where we'll start on either side of that oval. I'll start them half a track apart with 2 corners, 2 straightaways. You feel every mistake you make. So then the kids automatically start to understand where the time is being lost and gained. What being smooth is going to give you, what intensity is going to give you. If you put them out on a 2-minute national track, it's so hard. You get lost with kids. I mean, like you said, you got Evan, and you're dealing with this right now. And, that's where we're at. And I think with the pros, with my Supercross track, I don't have any triples on my Supercross track. I don't have a start straight on my Supercross track.
I'm assuming that you feel your guys have that figured out.
Yeah, so I feel like, yeah, exactly. So like, go back to deep practice, and obviously whoops we've seen in Supercross is the biggest thing, and then obviously fitness. So if they can get through without any rest lanes, if they can get through a 15-20 lap or 20-minute heat or moto, hopefully we can go to the race and last. So I mean, with the older kids, it's more about fitness. We still do that, but yeah, with addition, we've hired a new strength and conditioning coach. He ran track at Oklahoma State University and was on the Olympic rowing team. So with that addition, I think the physical side, once you've got the talent, is huge. So that's where we're at with the older kids, and with the younger kids, like I said, the deep practice stuff, the ovals, and arena cross. Just again, you could put the kids on Supercross, or a futures style track, but if you dial it down to arena cross, I have more control. I can see we can work and we can do that. And that's this winter we spent a lot more time doing that, and we did go into the spring nationals a little underprepared, but I'm confident that we got a lot of work done. So when this whole pandemic is over completely and futures kicks back up, I think we're going to see a whole new swing of what amateur motocross is all about / Supercross.
So, Greg, I obviously know you very well. We go back a long ways. We've had a lot of talks about training and coaching and amateurs and a lot of those things. But I want to go now back to the beginning so people know who you are more as an individual and what kind of led you to the experience that you have now and why you're effective. You and Jimmy Albertson, your brothers, Missouri, correct? From the Missouri area, but not on the same side as the Bogle, Nichols, Faulkner, right? Are you on the other side of Missouri?
So yeah, we're Springfield, Missouri, right? Kind of south central Missouri. Bogle, Nichols, they're Oklahoma. We were right across the border, so we always had the option. Missouri, there was not much, so it was either go to Oklahoma or Texas, or drive up to like Illinois, which was AMA districts. But all the fast kids were in Oklahoma because they're renegades out here. Like there's no AMA or anything, so there was nobody moving anybody up, and the kids could ride year round. So I mean, obviously with Guy Cooper, and then Robbie Raynard, and then there was always somebody. There was the kids could look up to. You could see a Robbie Raynard or Johnny Marley, who was winning everything at the time. You could see them racing at a local race on any given weekend. So we would try to get down to Oklahoma as much as possible, and I think that right there spawned this whole like crazy amount of talented Oklahomans, which, like I said, we're from Missouri, but you have, you went from Kennard to Bogle to Nichols they're all super competitive. If Troy was racing today, I don't doubt that he would still be in, that top 5 range.
Yeah, so that whole area then kind of centralized there, right? And I know you guys would get down to Texas a lot. The Hans were in that area too. So, and what was that like kind of growing up with that much talent in an area? Because you see a lot of talent in this country at the amateur nationals, and you'll have one kid out of this area, one kid out of this area. Every once in a while, you get like a pack and you get like a location that has a lot of guys like that. So for you guys growing up, what was that like driving across state borders and going to where there was a lot of talent? I mean, obviously it's fun now to look back and see where everyone's all gone with it. But at that time, what was it like with that amount of talent coming up in this kind of one area?
Yeah, it was wild because we weren't in that, area. Like the Hans were kind of in the same position as us. They were in from Kansas. So, we were always driving down to, we would see those guys in Oklahoma and Texas. Nobody came to Missouri. Nobody went to Kansas. But, we didn't get into that early. We had our local track, and we would venture out, as younger kids, not too much, but, my brother didn't have an amateur career, before the 125C class. I was a local hero, and but I'm also a realist. My grandpa was an engineer, and I just assumed that I would go to college and be an engineer. Never looked at it that way, and even though I was fast, as soon as my little brother started beating me when I was 12 years old, I mean, I trained a lot of kids that I was faster than at 12 years old, a lot. But in my head, my little brother of 20 months had just beat me, and his chances were real slim. I thought mine were nothing. And, the older you get, the more you start to see what it's going to take. It's crazy what these athletes do, these motocross athletes, and the risk that's involved, and the training, and what you've got to give up to get to that level, as a family and also as an individual. And I figured out pretty early after an injury that wasn't going to be me, but I saw it in my brother, and I said, well, we got to, I wanted to be a part of this. I wanted to win, you know what I mean? So everything. So it was dissecting, our program starting at the age of 15, really, to see, hey, what can my brother do? Because at the end of the day, Supercross and motocross is the coolest thing in the world, right? As a 15, 16-year-old kid, you're starting to get a job, and you go, man, I don't want to do this. I want to be at the motocross track. This is my favorite place. So then I made that transition as like, how can I do this for the rest of my life? Because it sure as heck ain't going to be on top of that motorcycle. And that's where it started for me.
Now, again, through the years, Jimmy goes on to have success. You're a part of that. Then you become part of Trey Kennard's program. Where did the relationship with Trey, like, when did that start, and how did that escalate into the role that you had with him?
So a trainer that was around this before, when the whole training facility whole thing, this whole thing started, I'll blame it on Gary Simmons, honestly, this whole motocross thing. I mean, he wrote a book and so did some videos with the help of Jerry McGrath, and definitely he wrote out like exactly what was going on with technique. I mean, I'm sure you have those old videos. I used to fall asleep to them. Well, he trained.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was just gonna say, me and my brother, I've watched till the tape wouldn't spin.
So he actually trained a ton of trainers throughout the U.S. to be Gary Simmons motocross coaches, which leads into Shannon Nide. He was our, area's Gary Simmons coach. He was a local pro racer that did that, and he started doing very well for himself. Coaching aides with a family friend, and Trey also got a hold of Shannon, and we just started seeing guys like that at Shannon Nide schools. Started seeing, that's how I get to know Trey, the Wharton brothers. That's how we met Ryan Dungey. Shannon was training all these guys, and that's where and it was heavily technique based. So that's how we started the relation with Trey. And Trey was Trey was good people. They were just, they were like us, and Jimmy and Trey hit it off. We were just around. And when, after his dad passed, they hired a mechanic for him at a younger age. And his mechanic and I were about the same age. They didn't have the money to hire a mechanic, and he was in the same boat. He was a freshman in college and realized, Brent Presnell actually, and he realized, and this ain't for me. I want to be at the dirt bike track. Just we were in the same position. So he dropped out of college to work for Trey, and then we just caravanned it. Trey had the fifth wheel, and we just had a truck and trailer. So we would call and we would meet up, and we'd all pile into his fifth wheel, and we'd stay at different tracks for a week or two at a time. So I mean, it's 4 people living in real close quarters. So that's how that deal started with Trey. And we just became really close friends. And, that led into him winning a championship his rookie year and signing a deal and being able to buy his place. And at the time we were at the training facility thing had started. MTF and GPF were going on, and a satellite team that Jimmy was riding for called, I think it was Suzuki City. It was just a real low rate team, and that, we were out there, but they had a pretty cool deal set up where we go to GPF and MTF through that. So we're sitting down there, and Trey calls us up and says, "Hey, I just bought 88 acres in Oklahoma. I'm building the track right now. I'll be there in a couple months." We said, "You mind if we go right now?" So we moved into that property before he even finished the season. So, we actually moved into his house before he did, and the rest was history. We were. Between Jimmy's rides on and off, it wasn't stable being a privateer and maybe getting a ride this year or that year. So as soon as he got his first ride, Trey saw the work that I had been doing. I was very passionate about the result, and as soon as, Jimmy left for the Troy Lee Designs team when it started, he offered me a position as a practice bike mechanic, which ironically is everything I do right now. I mean, being a practice bike mechanic is being a trainer, it's being a track guy, it's running a facility, or at least it was for Trey. So that's how that whole deal started for me, even into the training facility aspect of it.
Greg, when I think of Trey's house, I just think of the violent basketball games that took place inside that building. We had some good ones. Hobo Nick. He drained himself some threes, it.
No hobos, no slouch.
I had a chance to stay there a couple different times, and that place was so much fun. Obviously, I know you got a million memories from that place, but what was it like to watch that place come together? Like you said, to get out there early. Hey, I got an 88-acre lot, and then to see what it turned into with those shops and those Supercross tracks, and was that cool just to watch the process go from that place to what it became at its peak?
Yeah. So that made me, like, I give our relationship with Trey and then my relationship with the grind of my brother and growing up and just doing whatever it takes, man, that's made me into what I wanted to be today as a coach. And I mean, the buildings were already there, but yeah, watching those tracks go, and then like all the way into this, Trey just wins a championship. That's big time money. And we got a 17-year-old kid buying bulldozers and skid steers to keep up on this. And he's hired a 21-year-old guy and myself, or 20-year-old, a kid, to work on this. And at a young age, I'm jumping in a bullet. Can you figure out how to do this? We figured it out as we went along. Hindsight's 20/20. Being able to, a Kennard being able to step into a baker's factory and not deal with all these growing pains would have been probably huge for him stress-wise. He dealt with a lot of stress, but we went through it together. And watching the tracks go up, Randy Poulter built the original tracks. So I'm learning how to drive a skid steer and operate a dozer for the first time. And it'd be like getting on a motorcycle for the first time and Cooper Webb telling you how to do it. You know what I mean? Because I've got these professional track builders. He's coming in. Jason Baker from Dream Tracks is coming in. Just how this all it came about, I learned to operate from those guys. I watched the fastest guys in the world between, Jimmy, Kennard, Bogle, Nichols, all riding at this place. I was constantly involved with what I felt like was the best crew, and the experience I gained there as in my early to late 20s was, I couldn't put a price tag on it. It was amazing.
And obviously that helps now with the things that now and at a more mature age. Let's just put it that way. We're not old. We're not old yet, Greg. But if anyone says we are, we're maturing, right? Right. Last question on Trey before we move on. Trey had incredible highs and some really tough lows in his racing career, just with some of the injuries. What was that like for you, being so close with him and being the person that was home with him, that really knew him at home? Because when you're at the races, you got a lot going on. You're caught up in the emotions of the day, but you were with him at home when he got to be himself. You got to live those highs and lows with him. What was that like for you to just watch him go through that? And how did you process that and maybe contribute to kind of helping him bounce through some of those times, high and low?
Yeah, I mean, we were definitely a family. Like the poor kid. I mean, the injuries, and my brother went through the same kind of like crazy injuries. And we're talking broken backs with surgery. We're talking, compound broken legs. We're talking about femurs. We're talking about like big time injuries that would end anybody else. To watch both of those guys come back from injuries like that was amazing. And then, with Trey's dad passing, just seeing like he had a young brother. They were raising him kind of a baby basically, and the roles that Trey had to play in that, and us all sticking together. I can just think of that night in LA where he got in that first turn accident and was unconscious and with a broken back, and at one point they didn't know like if he wasn't able to respond, so we didn't know if he was ever going to be able to walk again right away. I mean, once we got to the hospital, but just those emotions and going through that and seeing those comebacks, it's super inspiring, and that just, it's cool because that just becomes the norm. You know what I mean? Like when that kind of work ethic and attitude becomes just the norm, like it's crazy. And I have to tell myself that today. Trey's trainer, Greg Albertson, and he's our personal trainer now that we use. He writes our programs. Real mentally tough guy, real strong guy. But I deal with that today. I say, oh man, this guy, or they don't want it, or I get upset with my kids and my athletes. And Greg's got to remind me, he's like, you have no idea. Like those are such exceptional human beings. That time we were in, like, don't get used to that. Like it's nuts. You cannot, everybody's not that guy, So it was really cool to like reflect and look back on like how like resilient and relentless everybody was, and like watch, taking Trey when he couldn't drive and he's in a body cast and driving him to the Oklahoma City boathouse to work out with the best trainers to make sure that, he would make a full recovery, and leading up into, a whole year of that where, he could have fired me. I mean, he wasn't, they paid me well. And, he kept me on through that. From grading driveways for mom and taking care of the pool and whatever, it was just like a family. It wasn't even as soon as that happened and it died down, I was looking for a job, and Trey straight up said, no, you can, I want you to stay here. And that was really cool. Like the whole family aspect, that me, Jimmy and Trey had going on and Carrie, his mother, and Jackson, his little brother. It was awesome.
You have to imagine that was, again, a cool chapter at different times, but then also tough to kind of live that with them. But like you said, inspirational, because Trey, he just had an ability to always bounce back and stay positive during tough times. He's special that way. Moving into the more current time, now, again, you have a facility, you're coaching, you're training. What made you decide that you wanted to start doing that and go in that angle instead of maybe into the mechanic angle, or just a lot of different angles that you could go? Because you're in the industry, you got a lot of relationships. You could have went a bunch of different ways. What was it about training and coaching and having this facility that everyone would come to you and kind of creating what you've created? What made you make the decision to go that way?
So at that point I was doing a lot of different things. I was lost. I knew with the race team, we had Motorcycle Superstore Suzuki. We started the Crossland racing team with Chris Crossland. We had our own Arma. So we had gone through all this race team stuff, and we decided, Jimmy decided to fold the team after Superstore. The Mag Group filed for the part of bankruptcy, so we lost out on a second year. And I just thought, I don't know if I want to go back to it. I need to start something. So we were messing around. We got this between building tracks. I was doing some track building. I was doing some engine building. I was we have an internet satire character that I was helping out with, and then so I was kind of just all over. And I was doing the coaching, and I the coaching started taking off, and I really just I loved it because it was still like it was a building process, and I like seeing things come together. And I think that's why I do that. Whether it's a bike, you get to start off and you build it and you see things come together. If you've got a track, you start with nothing, and you see, and riders aren't any different. When you're working with a rider, watch that growth is pretty awesome. So I was doing all that stuff, and then I sat back and I said, I want to be good, right? I want to do something. I want to do something big, and I can't do it if I'm all over the map. So I sat there and I looked at competition, and I looked at what I thought I could do. And the track building, I look at Jason Baker and Randy Poulter, and I go, man, that's real. That's tough competition. I don't know if I could ever do that. And so I just went down the line, and I was looking at my competition, and I thought to my head, I said, if I put my heart to the coaching thing and I get it and I can build it at starting at 32 years old, I truly believed I could be the best. I thought I could be the best in the world if I started that. And that was the decision to go with the coaching, because I felt like I had success and I had a lot to share, and so I've been through that whole thing from the amateurs through the pros, working for factory teams alongside factory Honda, alongside and starting privateer teams. I thought at this point I had seen almost everything aspect of the sport, and we all know hindsight's 2020. So to go and share this knowledge, just like I see you, Daniel, and I was talking to Sean, he was getting us going on this call, and I told him about you staying down there and how much you rode compared to everybody else. And I just think if your hindsight, if you hit your racing as hard as you're hitting what you're doing now, it's just like it's crazy to think what you can do. And I just thought, like, man, I'm gonna hit this hard and go for it now.
And you've built something really cool. And again, it goes back to the diversity of the people that you coach. You've got Loretta Lynn's championships, and now you have a bike behind you with the 76. I'm just thinking of Harlan, a guy who got a top 5 at a Supercross, which, I mean, had to have been incredible for you. And the funny thing is you kind of gave me a little bit of the warning that was coming from Harlan. You said, hey, I got this guy. He's a hard worker. He goes for it. And this isn't like this year. This is years ago you told me about him. What's it been like now to see him kind of get up in there, not only become a main event maker, but then take that step, get in the top 10, then get a top 5, and knowing that he did a lot of that did it all under your tutelage, and you've been able to coach him. I know you think really highly of his character, and I know that drives you to get the best out of him because of who he is. But, what's it been like to see someone like that be able to blossom, like right in front of you? And again, you've been with Trey Kennard, so you've seen the highs of the highs. Now you have someone who you've been able to watch work themselves into a top 5. I mean, what's that been like? That's a completely different aspect of the things that you've done.
Yeah, so character, right? His characters reminds me a lot of that, of Trey or anybody that wins. He's a finisher, and I've been on the track and Grant will finish no matter what, you know, people play fantasy or whatever, and they call me and I've asked about Grant. I said, no matter what, dude's going to finish, you know? So you just got to be a finisher. And I've had this conversation with kids before because they'll come ask me and I'll lay out a schedule that's pretty tough and they'll pull off early and they tell me, I don't understand how hard it is. I don't understand how I do. But I got to explain to them, all you have to do is finish, consistently finish. And, you know, he's a finisher. So it's, when you lay out a program, you just got to try to hit it at 100%. You got to try to hit everything at 100%. You're going to fail. It's so hard to hit anything perfect, right? Perfect is something we strive for, but if we can go ahead and get as close to that as possible on a daily basis, that's all we can ask for. So he gets that and he understands that. So, and he listens very well. So it's him. It's gnarly. I'll tell you right now, I couldn't do the things these guys do. And I know that, but it helps for them to know, like, okay, I've seen this through, and he trusts in it. I think what we see right now is people preparing for a certain race, or, you know, we want to prepare for Loretta Lynn's this year, or we want to prepare for this, or Freestone. Everybody wants to prepare for a race 2 weeks out, or a month out, or 2 months out. They're not looking at the big picture. And I think Grant, when he started with me, he's a big picture guy. We understand it takes a long time, and it's really cool because that's how I go about it with my mini bike riders. Patience, you know, everybody wants to be ready for the weekend. How rough's your track? How, you know, who is there to ride with? Nobody's really nobody's thinking about the long game. Not very many people are thinking about the long game. And I think that's why it becomes easier to hit that, because the highs and lows, if you look at it that way, and not big picture, the highs are extreme, the lows are extreme. The more even keel you can be in understanding, hey, we've got a long-term goal, the better off you are. And I think with Grant, he wants to win. You know what I mean? You don't go out saying your goals, but the goal is to win. Okay, we understand that's not tomorrow, right? So you don't want to say that out loud, but we wouldn't be racing if we weren't trying to win. So, you know, getting closer to the top. So when we look at times, the fifth was awesome, but we're always looking at how far we're off the qualifying time, how far off first, not seconds wise, because the tracks change, percentages, you know, how many percent were we off the fastest lap time? Because maybe this week, and it's because it's easy to get lost on whether you're making progress or not. If the track was a minute long and we were off by, you know, 3 seconds, and then we were off, and then the track was maybe 45 seconds long the next weekend, and we were off by 2.5, or, you know, maybe a little bit less. Maybe we thought we made a gain. We didn't really make a gain. So we look at the same thing. So the fifth was really cool, but, you know, he called me after that and it's like, I got lapped. You know what I mean? So we're real with what we're doing, and he's really realistic with his expectation, but the goal is always to win, but that doesn't have to be tomorrow. We're, you know, just being realistic with your goals, but wanting to be the best or to make it to the top.
I want to come back to big picture. Before I do, I would like to ask one more thing on Harlan. One thing that you told me that you really respected, this is one of the first things you said is, dude, the guy does his own bike work. He changes top ends. He gets in the dozer. He fixes the track. He's not just a dirt bike rider. And I mean, you made a point that really early in our conversation about him, how important that was. Why is that so important when he's a dirt bike racer who is supposed to be getting better on his dirt bike? Why do those parts of his character matter so much to you? And why do you think those things help him?
I think he just completely, he understands the road ahead of him. You know, he invests in himself over and over. And man, he was able to, last year he had a terrible Supercross season. Ty Lue Honda, Buddy Brooks' team put him on a ride for a Supercross only deal, and, you know, he didn't perform. He missed main events, and, you know, after that he went out and bought his own 450, and we trained here, and he went out and you know, rode some outdoor nationals. So once he could afford, he couldn't do the whole thing, but, you know, it led to him getting close to that top 10 with, you know, an 11th place finish, you know, at the second to last round, because it wasn't in the budget to go to the last round. Again, you know, a team like that, a developed team like the Ty Lue Honda team couldn't put somebody that was missing main events on the team. He understood that there was nothing he could do. So he reaches out and he goes to the who's your arena cross series? A local series. He reaches out with the help of Ty Lube putting together a program for him, and he's going out on his own, doing that with a bike. He was provided a bike, and he's doing this, and then they see that, and a week before Houston, that the established team like them call him up and say, hey, we need a position to fill. So he creates he's creating opportunities for himself, and he's going to continue to do that. So that's cool to see. That's the character he has. When in this, I see too many people through the time growing up. And my brother was the same way too. If we needed something, we went out and got it ourselves. If we needed money, we went and raced, because that's what a professional motocrosser does. Grant's the same way. He pays his own bills. He goes and races. When we owned the race team, we'd have people calling, oh man, we just need a shot. We just need a bike. Give us a bike. Give us this. Give us that. Well, we don't have a bike. Why don't you, as a professional motorcycle rider, have a motorcycle? Can you not find somebody to finance a bike for you? It's a $150 payment a month. If you can't go do that, and you're not fast enough to go to some local races and be able to afford that bike payment, then why is anybody else going to take a chance on you? So Grant's that way. He's got an awesome deal right now with these guys at Ty Lube, but he's also got bikes in the chamber, because that could go out at any time. He had a crash at Daytona, and he's gonna miss the rest of the Supercross. So his future's uncertain. But what he does have, when he goes back to riding, he's got a program. He's got me. He's got a track. He's got his own motorcycles. So it's pretty cool. He's not relying on anybody else, because in this life, the only people you can really rely on are yourself. So he's done a good job about teaching himself how to work on bikes, like changing top ends and tires. When he came here 2 years ago, he couldn't change a tire, and now he changes 2 a week. He's got a great sponsorship through a tire company, so he gets to do that kind of thing. But again, being that guy, you don't have another $600 a week to pay a practice bike mechanic. So it's all out of necessity.
And building that character, like you said, I'm sure that is appreciated by the other kids that you coach too, that get to see him. And I would imagine you use him as an example too, to let people know, like, look, this is how it's done. You got to take matters into your own hands and do it. Let's go back to big picture. You and I, again, have had a lot of conversations about the sport and the way to prepare. You're very, very, very micro detailed when it comes to fundamentals and riding, but you do look at this sport through more macro lens. What kind of messaging do you give to your students? And what kind of, I guess, messaging do you stand behind as far as how to approach this sport, the ultimate goal? What are we chasing? Because again, on the bike, you're very detailed, but when it comes to life, you do look at the big picture more than most.
Yeah, so that's skill building. Like that's what I tell these guys. It's all about skill building. I think we see it now more than ever, because of the facilities are a problem in this. It's scrimmage all the time. Just go out, pound motos on this hard track. The amount of B riders that are blazing fast that can't ride a slow wheelie. I mean, think about when we were kids. Like, the amount of bike skills we have from messing around on the bike, that's gone away. Big picture, it's easy. It's skill building. It's all about skill building and learning through failures. That's huge, and then we go back to the oval drill, just being able to deep practice, really hone in on what we're working on for that day, to get the form right. That's going to create less injuries. It's going to create bike skills. And then big picture for me, starting with the Supercross track's a huge deal for me. I've got 2 guys riding Supercross. It didn't make sense for me to build a Supercross as a business, is what some of my clients are going to say. Wow, you need to focus on anybody riding Supercross. Well, I've got Grant. But what they don't realize is the importance of their 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old rolling in the morning, getting ready for their motos, and watching guys like Grant Harlan putting on work. You mentioned hot spots earlier. Oh, look at this group popped up. These guys popped up. I mean, SoCal's always been easy because there's always been the fastest motocrossers there. But across the country, you've seen these hot spots blow up at any given time. These kids need to see this, in my opinion. In Oklahoma, we went over that with Guy Cooper to Robbie Rayner to Trey Kennard. There was this. They see him at the local track. It's not some dream. This is going to happen for me. Like, I live here. I race these same tracks. It's not just this pipe dream. In Missouri, there was Jeff Hemming, but after Jeff Hemming, there was nothing. My brother came through and went and was riding Supercross. And then guess what? You had Benny Bloss and Austin Faulkner. Like, is that a coincidence that now you've created this? I don't think so. So big picture for me is laying out a plan and then being able to see it through. And so it's not just this pipe dream. And you see it right now in all kinds of different areas. Right now where you're at up there in NorCal, I mean, you've got kids like Jaden Smart and Aiden Steinbrecher, and you've got these hot spots because now it's not fast, right? It's just the norm. It is. These kids are extremely fast, but they look at the other guys, and that's just how fast we ride dirt bikes. It's not we're going super fast. That's just they've acclimated to that's just the speed, right? So I think that's the biggest thing a training facility can do. So that's the big picture for me is trying to create that on top of the deep practice, the little things, hammering foot position, body position, just in short spurts, not having a 2-minute track where you lose control of everything.
It's funny you talk about the hot spots and being able to watch these guys. And you mentioned Smart and Steinbrecher because NorCal has a little wave right now of some talent coming up. There's a lot of it, and it's brewing. And it's funny because we had Max Folan. Max was he's our guy. He's our NorCal guy. He races Sac Raceway. He races River. He's everywhere. He's at the practice tracks. And it's funny because you go to the local track now. I come home from the Supercross on the weekend, and all everyone wants to talk about is Max. And obviously, Max had the injury, so he lost some time. But in the beginning, oh man, did you see Max? Max. I mean, everyone loves Max because he was that little kid from around here that made it all the way through, and now he's leading the heat race. And it's funny because now you see these local kids around here that feel like they could maybe get there because, well, Max rode these tracks. Max raced around here, and I do too. It almost makes them human a little bit, you know? Is that kind of what you're talking about as far as these young kids seeing Grant Harlan ride the Supercross track? Maybe they don't get to ride it, but then on Saturday night when you get together for your TV party, Grant's getting top 5, and they're like, we watched him ride Wednesday. Like, is that what you're talking about? Is just being able to visualize and see these people, humanize them, and then you see them on screen, and you're like, I can get there. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, think about, like, as a kid, you want to be an astronaut, right? Or you want to do this, but like, and everybody tells you can, but the older you get, you realize that, or the president or whatever. But if you're living next door to George Senior, you know what I mean? Or you're living, you know, you grew up and you're John Glenn, or, you know, like it's gotta become more than just, oh, I want to be this because I see it on TV. So absolutely. And I think, you know, you mentioned Max. I think there's something to be said about that. You know, you're seeing that hot spot because now he's at the top level and these kids are there, and you said they're riding the same track, doing the same program. And I talk to Talon a lot, and I really like their program. And, you know, the training facilities become this beast of a business, right? And that's where my struggle is going forward from here. Like, what do I do? Like right now we train 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. These other places are open 5 days a week. I can't think of why other than they're just trying to, I mean, you're riding the same track every day, right? It becomes a business. So after talking to Talon, you know, we got our spots, we've got riverbank tracks, we got this or that. It's hard to move groups of 30 to 40 people. Like, that's why I like my small groups. I can take groups to the sandbanks. I can go down the street to a different track. Once it becomes this business, I'm stuck and I'm married to staying at the same track every day. So yeah. I listen and I talk to guys a lot. I want to train like we used to train, you know, and then after talking to Talon and other people that have done it and been there, like, you know, right now we're doing 2-a-days. We're riding in the mornings, either at a sand track or we're doing technique stuff, ovals, and then we're riding in the afternoons. It's terrible. I get families complaining about it, but at the end of the day, I got into this because I wanted to win. So that's my new outlook on this thing. I'm no longer in I don't want to be in the customer service business. I want to be in the winning business.
That's a big step too, right? But you got to find people that are committed at your level too. If you want to win, you have to find riders that want to win too. I know you got a couple little rippers out there. I know you like the Eli Gross kid, Maverick Gish. You've got these talented kids that are kind of emerging. How do you compete at that top level against the kids that are at the facilities, or, you know, or even maybe they're not at the facilities, but they're winning races? How do you motivate these young kids to take that next step? But at the same time, you knowing the big picture, knowing that right now, does it matter all the way? It matters more in the teenage years. How do you kind of balance that where you want to keep them competitive, but know that the whole world doesn't revolve around just today? Like, how do you give that message to a 10-year-old kid like Gish or a 11, 12-year-old like Eli Gross? How do you deliver that message to them?
just constant pressure. And when I say pressure, it's the consistency of effort with those guys. And it's more with the kids, it's dealing with the families. Like the kids are fine. Like the families, the highs and the lows of the families, and going up and down, that even keel that they lack most of the time. So it's teaching them that. It's really my coaching with the kids. I got it handled. It's so easy with the oval and getting them ride the right way and putting the time. It's coaching the families on how to go about it, and it's tough because I'll tell a family one thing and then another family another thing, and they'll hear, well, you just told them to do that. I'm like, it's so like situational.
Yeah, that's them. They're in a different world than you are, right? It's different.
Yeah, because there's so many things. Like even with the fast kids. You said I don't need to go to Daytona and I need to go to this race, or I don't need to go on either race, but you told this other family go to all three races. Like it's managing a program. And I think when I manage the race team, like you got to, like each one of these families is your individual race team, right? So there's certain levels of their budget is a huge thing, right? So yeah, if I know a family's not going to be stressed to go monetarily, yeah, I'll tell them, go hit them out. I think this experience could help. But on the other hand, a family will hear that, well, you told us not to go. Well, maybe it's none of my business, but I've got my team manager hat on. You could maybe get there, but my family did that. They got there. They tried early on with us, and they went through bankruptcy. I mean, it put my parents' marriage in hell. It strained us. It taught us a lot of things as kids. We got what we wanted, and then once we went through there, it forced us to make decisions on it's this or that, which was cool. But yeah, you tell a family, oh, hey, you shouldn't go. Well, we can make it. We can do this. But yeah, maybe you can. But if it elevates the stress level, then it's a negative. So man, it's just so hard to try to explain that to families. And I feel with what they paid, it's so expensive to do this training now. What we facilities charge. So I feel like I got to give these people everything, and try to give them the best experience. Because if I just throw a blanket over all my kids, it's not going to benefit all of them. So I think it's a hard take for these families to kind of go to understand that. But once I've had them, like the families that I've had for over a year, it's awesome because now that's where we're really building. So, but again, it's easy to one jump ship. The amateur motocross thing, everybody's program's a house of cards. As soon as something goes bad, the bike wasn't good enough, the trainer sucks, this or that. But if you look at the pros, there's always self-reflection. You know what I mean? And that's the craziest thing I've learned is, when pros, they don't give up on the program and the people around them. They make adjustments and they do this, where here it's just like, oh, well, we suck. So now our mod bike wasn't good enough and our training facility wasn't good enough, rather than the self-reflection. And I think that's the best thing I can try to teach the kids. Some people aren't teachable, but that self-reflection and accountability is what you can learn.
Greg, this has been awesome. Last question for you before I let you go. What is your goal? I know you're happy right now. You got a great thing going, but I know you're too driven of a person to just sit still. 3 years, 5, 10. What is Gregg Albertson doing in the future? What is it that you would like to chase and accomplish moving forward?
Well, moving forward, I'm working on some stuff now about doing some really fun event style camps. Okay, because people don't bring their kids to me. I'm not ex-pro motocrosser guy. I'm not a school where you get to meet. If you go to Trey Kennard and he teaches you, you got to meet Trey Kennard, or even Walker's got he had a great racing career. Where he won races. That wasn't me. People are bringing me their kids because they want to go faster. It's not just an experience. So moving forward, I've got some camps lined up for this year where I want to keep it low key. My main goal is to keep it low key, keep it intimate with these families, try to build these relationships, get everybody better. I mean, winning, that's always the goal, but you fall short. I want to teach these kids to become really good human beings. If they like motocross like myself and it doesn't pan out, maybe they can get a job like me or you in the industry. I want to be able to do that and then focus on that. And then with these event style camps, bring in the guys like Brett Q and Ronnie Mack and just have a 3-day instructional thing where we have fun and the pressure's off and we do some fun stuff. So that's where I see my business going. I want to do 2, 3, 4, 5 of these across the country to get everybody this great experience, have fun, teach them the fundamentals that I'm talking about in a more laid back. And then, like I said, keep this more intimate, where I do treat it more like a professional in with the Baker's Factory, where I only take 2 or 3 people in each class. That way I'm not overstrung, so I can be, these kids aren't directly competing against each other, where, you know, we can have a guy's goal is a top 10 at Loretta's and a guy's goal is, you know, top 5 at Loretta's, or, you know, so they're racing in the same class, but they're not direct competition. So that's what I'm trying to turn my elite program into right now. And it's a growing thing. It's, like I said, we're going on our second year of having little bikes. So it's exciting. So I want to be able to do that, just keep that intimacy. So that's where I see this going, into more of an elite program with my full-time stuff, so I don't have to blow it up, and then the event style camps across the United States.
I'll have to imagine it'll be a success, because I know how hard you work and I know how good a work you do. So Gregg, thanks for coming on Beyond the Track with me. I was real excited to do this one. And again, it just felt like you and me talking again. This is like the formal version of you and I having a conversation, because we've had many on these topics. So it was fun to hear from you, and I'm glad you're doing well out there. I'll see you soon.
All right. Hey, thanks a lot, Daniel.